Shalom, family,
Shalom.
and welcome to another new moon, new month. As this is an ordained and commanded gathering by Yahweh, as my brother, Priest Eliah, stated in his opening prayer, this is a commanded gathering that Yahweh commanded for us to do and gather on these new moons. Tonight's new moon is entitled The Harsh Reality of Being Yah's Servant. Now, as far as being a servant, we don't look at our day-to-day lives that the work that we're doing for somebody else. We're servants. The difference between our jobs is that 9 times out of 10, you're going to be doing the same thing over and over and over. Being a servant of Yahweh is completely different. You don't know from day to day what Yahweh is going to require of you. It's not even day to day. It could be from 1 hour to the next that Yahweh changes what he requires of his servants. 1 minute, you could be a screwdriver. The next minute, he could require you to be a hammer. Now, the jobs seem similar. Screwdriver is fastening a screw to hold something together. The hammer is putting a nail in to hold things together. But with one of them, there's constant impact that's also being felt by that servant. The screwdriver is low impact. The hammer is constant impact. As it is hitting something, it is also feeling that blow. That's where most of the servants of Yahweh stand when we have to stand on his commandments, his word, and deal with his people. Because as we're issuing the law, statutes, and judgments, we're also getting blowback. But we got to continue on the path. The hammer keeps doing its job. And when you look at the hammer, you'll see indentations over a time period from where it keeps striking that nail. And then I guess that's why Yahweh said, I made your forehead hard. Because what we going up against is hard. A nail is hard. So let's begin tonight's class in Numbers chapter 12. An interesting thing about Numbers chapter 12 is this chapter keeps coming back up. At least once a month in somebody's class, this chapter keeps coming back up. And I'm just starting to wonder if this is just the UCI's chapter. Because with every time we go into this particular chapter, we keep getting moved on a different level. We keep opening up to something different with this one chapter. Numbers chapter 12, and we're going to begin at verse 1.
And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moshe because of the Ethiopian woman who he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, Hath Yahweh indeed spoken only by Moshe? Hath he not spoken also by us? And Yahweh heard it. Now the man Moshe was very meek, above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And Yahweh spake suddenly unto Moshe, and unto Aaron, and unto Miriam, Come out ye three unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And the three came out.
Now, verse 4 says, And Yahweh spake suddenly unto Moshe, and unto Aaron, and unto Miriam, Come out you three unto the tabernacle of the congregation, and they three came out. Now, when you look at this whole situation, you just think he's just calling them outside. But there's a significance behind him calling them out to the tabernacle of the congregation. We're going to look at that in a minute. Go ahead.
And Yahweh came down in a pillar of the cloud, and stood in the door of the tabernacle, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, Yahweh, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moshe is not so, whom is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of Yahweh shall behold. Wherefore, then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe?
And Yahweh keeps saying, my servant, my servant. What they tried to do is put themselves on an equal playing field with Yahweh's servant. And that's what I see keeps happening. people keep not understanding what it means to be a servant of Yahweh. Elder has said it before. Yahweh's servant don't get to mistreat Yahweh's servants. But we have a situation where it seems like you'll have brothers come through the door, sisters come through the door, and after they've sat around for a little while, they think they've got it, and then they want to boast themselves against the servant. You're forgetting it's a servant. I don't care which one of us in this room, as long as you're baptized in the name of Yahshua and you're doing what you're supposed to do, making yourself available to be a servant, be careful how you're dealing with that person. I don't care if it's a brother or sister. I don't care if it's your father or your mother, your husband or your wife. Please be careful how you deal with Yahweh's servants. We have to look at the things that people are putting themselves through to continue to do the work that is put forth in front of them for Yahweh's house, for Yahweh's word. We have to be careful how we deal with one another. And every time that I see that someone gets their feelings crushed, it's because they've come up against a servant of Yahweh. But that also happens because you don't understand what it means to be a servant of Yahweh. That means you have not put yourself in the position of servitude. Go ahead.
And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle. And behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moshe, Alas, my master, I beseech thee, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned.
So what you see here in a roundabout way, this situation just happened when Aaron saw the results. Now it's time to apologize. We don't hear, I'm sorry, but if you listen to what's being said, an apology is being made for the action. And this is where we don't get the right then and there, dealing with the apology when something's brought to you. We go round about the corner, this, that, we got all kind of excuses instead of just dealing with the apology. You know when we realize the apology? When things start being taken from us, when things start being done to us, when things are happening in our lives that we can't explain, and somebody, one of Yahweh's servants, come up to you and say, yeah, you remember this situation here? Yeah, remember this, that, and that? You never did take care of that situation, did you? But even with taking care of that situation, a lot of us want to go do a private apology. Aaron's taking care of this business outside, in front of the tabernacle of the congregation. Go ahead.
Verse 12. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed, when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moshe cried unto Yahweh, saying, Hear her now, O Elohim, I beseech thee. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. And afterward the people removed from Hazareth and pitched in the wilderness of Paran.
All right, let's go to Exodus chapter 33. We're going to read verses 7 through 11. Exodus chapter 33, and we're going to read verses 7 through 11. And this is so we can get an understanding of verse 4 when it says, And Yahweh spake suddenly unto Moshe and unto Aaron and unto Miriam, Come out, you three, onto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. Let's see why he called them out there. Or was he just saying something just to be saying it? Exodus chapter 33, and we're going to start at verse 7.
And Moshe took the tabernacle and pitched it without the camp, afar off from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of the congregation. And it came to pass that every one which sought Yahweh went out onto the tabernacle of the congregation, which was without the camp. And it came to pass, when Moshe went out onto the tabernacle, that all the people rose up and stood every man at his tent door and looked after Moshe until he was gone into the tabernacle.
There's your clue right there. Chapter 4. Come out, you three, onto the tabernacle of the congregation. What happens? And it came to pass when Moshe went out to the tabernacle, whenever he went to the tabernacle, everybody came out and watched. So guess what? Yahweh called them all three. Come on out here. Because it's already custom for everybody to watch. So let me bring you out here so they can all see me hand you your behind. Everybody's watching. Their conversation was in secret. Yahweh said, no. Come out. Come on out. It's already customary that everybody watches that area. So don't you think everybody saw what was going on? But when we do stuff wrong, we want it to be dealt with in private. But things can be dealt with in private depending on how far you let it go. That's the clue I want everybody to catch in verse 4. Yahweh called them out because he knew. It was customary for everybody to watch Moshe. Oh, man, Moshe is out there. And then he let her sit out 7 days. Don't think they didn't see her turn leprous white as snow. Don't think that they didn't see her get marched out. Go ahead.
And it came to pass, as Moshe entered into the tabernacle, the cloudy pillar descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle. And Yahweh talked with Moshe.
And this time he talked with Aaron and Miriam. But see, it was customary. The people would watch this. But today was a different day. There's two other individuals that's usually not there. Go ahead.
And all the people saw the cloudy pillar stand at the tabernacle door. And all the people rose up and worshipped, every man in his tent door. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. And he turned again into the camp. But his servant Yahshua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tabernacle.
And then we just read that again. Yahweh reiterated that to them. I will speak face to face with Moshe. Anybody else, y'all getting it in dreams and visions? So they were used to seeing this. So what made them so pumped up that they feel they could stand on equal ground with Moshe? That's what happens when we're looking from afar and not really understanding what a servant is dealing with and what a servant's going through. The funny thing is, maybe they should have asked Yahshua. Hey man, what goes on when Moshe's up there with Yahweh? Maybe he could have warned them. See, that's not the man you want to play with. But even with that, if they went to Yahshua, Yahshua would have said, hey man, go talk to Moshe. People will take that and go around and go to the next person. Hey man, go talk to Moshe. Sometimes you try to give people the easy, look, bruh, just go talk to Moshe. No need to get me involved, just go talk to Moshe. You could end all the confusion. But now you see Moshe do a few things and you think you can do the same thing that he's doing. Your relationship is not the same. So before you go against a true servant of Yahweh, ask yourself first, Is my relationship the same with Yahweh as that person's relationship is? Am I standing on equal footing and equal ground as this person? That's why I said judge yourself so you be not judged. Let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 26. We all have different diversity of gifts. But at the same token, there has to be a level of respect for everybody's different diversity of gifts. 2 Chronicles chapter 26, and we're going to start at verse 16.
But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction, for he transgressed against Yahweh, his Elohim, and went into the temple of Yahweh to burn incense upon the altar of incense. And Azariah the priest went in after him, and with him 80 priests of Yahweh that were valiant men. And they withstood Uzziah the king, and said unto him, It pertaineth not unto thee, Uzziah, to burn incense unto Yahweh, but to the priests, the sons of Aaron, that are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for thou hast trespassed, neither shall it be for thine honor, for from Yahweh Elohim.
So verse 16 says, but when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction. We have to be careful. Walk in this walk. We get to the point that we feel like we know a little something, then all of a sudden we want to get puffed up, let that leaven fall out. You don't know enough. You haven't put in enough works. You haven't been around long enough. But see, I guess because he figured he's in a position of rulership, that he can undermine the other people's position. And sometimes we do stuff and it seems like that's where you're going and innocently you're treading on a thin line. But that's where we got to let it know that, you know what, hey, I'm really not trying to step on anybody's toes. These two things just kind of mesh right here. So we gonna work together to make this okay. But most people, once they get a little strength in them, once they feel they got a little foundation in the word, that's where they want to jump off. And you haven't learned enough. You haven't sat in the seat long enough. And guess what? As long as you sitting in that seat and the elder sitting in his seat, you can't catch up. Or as long as you sitting in your seat and one of these priests sitting in their seat, you can't catch up. They would have to stop sitting in the seat and fall off to give you an opportunity to catch up. Because when you just come in and they've already got years ahead of you, as you're learning, they're learning, but you still have not caught up with the years that was there before you. That still keeps them ahead of you. But sometimes because we're sitting in the same room, we feel like we're on the same level of knowledge. And then you have people who come in that might come in the door with you at the same time you came in. And because you came in at the same time, you feel that you're on the same level. No. While you sitting in the seat and you fellowshipping, that person around the corner asking questions. That person's being brought up on another level because they're not afraid to expose themselves. Hey, priest, look at here. I got this issue. Hey, priest, what was meant by this? Hey, priest, what's... But all you do is you see that, you know what, me and him came through the door at the same time. We here every Shabbat. We here every new moon. You know, I've never missed one. I've never seen him miss one. We on the same level. No, you're not. And another thing you might not see is when they show up to do works around the church and you ain't around. Hey, there's some learning going on. I've often made a joke. There's the class that happens in the sanctuary on the Shabbat, and then there's a class that happens while we fellowshipping around the dining table, and the questions that are going across and the scenarios that are being dealt with. You're not there, so you're not being brought up on that next level. But yet you think you and this person's on the same level. Until one day you look up and they're in a position, you're like, well, I've been here the same amount of time. Why this person got a position and I don't have a position? You're not on the same level. Was that it, my brother?
Verse 19. Then Uzziah was wroth, and had a censer in his hand to burn incense. And while he was wroth with the priests, the leprosy even rose up in his forehead before the priests in the house of Yahweh, from beside the incense altar. And Azariah, the chief priest, and all the priests looked upon him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead.
You know, even verse 19, then Uzziah was angry and had his censer in his hand to burn incense while he was angry with the priests. He's angry with the man whose job he's trying to do. You trying to do my job, but you angry with me. It's not given to you. And that goes right back to what I'm saying, a couple of Sabbath classes, and you think you got a good footing and a good foundation, and you're ready to go out and be a priest. It's not only detrimental to you, it's detrimental to the people that you're trying to teach. Because you don't know enough. Go ahead.
And Azariah, the chief priest, and all the priests looked upon him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead. And they thrust him out from thence. Yea, himself hasted also to go out, because Yahweh had smitten him. And Uzziah the king was a leopard unto the day of his death, and dwelt in several houses, being a leopard, for he was cut off from the house of Yahweh. And Jotham, his son, was over the king's house, judging the people of the land. Now the rest of the acts of Uzziah, first and last, did Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, write. So Uzziah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the field of the burial, which belonged to the kings. For they said, he is a leopard, and Jotham, his son, reigned in his stead.
All right, let's go to Galatians chapter 2. Galatians chapter 2, and we're going to start at verse 1. Galatians chapter 2, and we're going to read verses 1 through 14.
Then 14 years after I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas, and took Titus with me also. And I went up by revelation, and communicated unto them that gospel which I preached among the Gentiles, but privately to them which were of the reputation, lest by any means I should run or had run in vain. But neither Titus, who was with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised, and that because of false brethren unaware brought in, who came in privately, spy out our liberty, to which we had the Mashiach Yahshua, that they might bring us into bondage, to whom we gave place by subjection, no, not for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might continue with you. But of these whom seem to be whatsoever they were, it maketh no matter to me. Elohim accepteth no man's person. For they whom seem to be somewhat in conference added nothing to me. But contrariwise, when they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto me, as the gospel of the circumcision was on the Cephas, for he that wrought effectively in Cephas to the apostleship of the circumcision, the same was mighty in me towards the Gentiles. And when James, Cephas, and Johanan, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that was given unto me, they gave to me and Barnabas the right hands of the fellowship, that we should go unto the heathen, and they unto the circumcision. Only they would that we should remember the poor, and same which is also was forward to do. But when Cephas was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, because he was to be blamed. For before that certain came from James, he did eat with the Gentiles. But when they were come, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision.
Verse 11, but when Cephas was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face because he was to be blamed. This brother said, nah, there's an issue going on, and you causing me issues. And because you causing me issues in my job with the people that I have to deal with, I got to confront you. It didn't say it took him aside privately and dealt with this as a private matter. It says, but when Cephas was come to Antioch, that means the minute he saw him, hey, bro, let's deal with this. But you see, when we deal with stuff like this, people think we're wrong. These are Yahweh's servants. Yahweh puts it out that things should be dealt openly. That way other people can look and say, hey, man, you know what? This is real. You are causing this man issues. You got to think about the problem he's causing him. He's somewhere else and this man is causing him problems. They're not even working in the same city or town. But from where you at, you causing me problems way over here where I'm at. We got to deal with this. Go ahead.
And the other Yehudis disassembled likewise with him, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation.
See that? You affecting other Yehudis. But you gave me the right hand of fellowship. You made me think everything's okay. But when I'm gone, you causing me problems. So you making things seem one way when it's really another way. But the biggest thing to get out of this is that he dealt with this matter as soon as he saw him out in the open. Go ahead.
But when I saw that they walked not uprightly, according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Cephas before them all.
See, y'all, you thought I was joking when I said this was done in the open? He said I said it to him before all of them. I didn't pull him aside. Because what he's doing isn't causing me problems on the side, it's causing me problems openly. So I said it in front of all of them. But you do this and people think you're wrong. But bro, when you went to this sister, when you went to that brother, you causing different people. So after a while, it's a multitude of people, even though you didn't speak to them all at the same time, you have caused problems for me with a multitude of people. So now I got to deal with you in front of all of them. Go ahead.
If thou, being a Yehudi, livest after the manner of the Gentiles, and not as do the Yehudi, why compellest thou the Gentiles to live as do the Yehudis?
All right. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 27. We don't even have to go there. Proverbs chapter 27 and 5 states, open rebuke is better than secret love. Open. Let's handle the matter in the open. Open rebuke. But see, we'll do the secret rebuke thinking that that's true love. It says open rebuke. Let's go to Matthew chapter 15. You know, when I used to hear my elder do some of his classes and some of the stuff that he would say on the Sabbath day, I would sit there in amaze, just stunned like, man, did he just put that person out on blast in the middle of the class and on the internet and on People TV and on whatever other sources we broadcasting on? And the name was said that. So you wouldn't have to guess 9 times out of 10 who he talking about most of the times. Because the old man was coming to let you know, no, this is who I'm talking about. See, I was talking to some of the sisters and brothers yesterday, and I was saying, you know, we have classes and people are trying to figure out, man, what is this about? Who done did what? You know, hey, YAH putting your name out there. And the amazing thing is, everybody was fair game, from his house to your house. But that's a servant. Because this man knows that he's responsible for the souls in the building. If you really didn't come to be a servant or to be saved, then take that burden off of the priests. Because as long as you in the building, you've been baptized. You are his burden to carry. If you know you didn't come to walk right, relieve him of that burden. Open the seat up for somebody else who really came to serve and change their lives. But if names would be called Sabbath after Sabbath, people would be upset. But it's for our correction, for our betterment, to be better servants. Go ahead. Matthew chapter 15 and start that at verse 10, please.
And he called the multitude and said unto them, Hear and understand, not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man.
And that's where we have problems with people keep running their mouths. But here's the biggest thing. If you run in your mouth, do you not understand that at some point somebody else is going to run their mouth? You think it's only fair for you to keep running your mouth, and when the other individual catch wind and start running their mouth, oh, I was done so wrong. Oh, you're not right. But you keep running your mouth. But once again, on the platform of Moshe, they were running their mouths. They didn't have the platform that Moshe had. Moshe's platform was bigger. His microphone was bigger. His audience was bigger. Because I don't think none of them can out-talk Yahweh, and I don't think none of them could be louder than Yahweh. So when you run in your mouth, do you look at the platform and who you're running your mouth against? like Elder recently said, hey, when you out in the streets against the people with the bullhorn, you wasting your time trying to shout against them. It's a losing match. They got a bullhorn. So it's the same thing. If you in here running your mouth and you don't have control of the microphone, and don't get mad when the person who controls the microphone turns on all the speakers and start to talk. But like I stated earlier, the timing of how we deal with things and when we deal with things can determine if it stays a private matter or if it gets aired to everyone. Go ahead.
Verse 12. Then came his disciples and said unto him, Knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? But he answered and said, Every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up.
So ask yourself, when you get rooted up, is it the man behind the altar that caused you to get rooted up, or Yahweh didn't plant you? But know you what you're going to do. You're going to blame the man. You're going to blame the servant of Yahweh. Like I had to tell my son yesterday, let's look at the consequences of our actions first before we want to deal with what everybody else around has done. But this is why this happened, because this... No. But where's your part of what you were doing before all of that happened that caused you to have to react the way you reacted? So you see, before it got to all these people, you were in control of how the outcome could have been before everybody else did what they did. Go ahead.
Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Then answered Cephas, and said unto him, Declare unto us this parable. And Yahshua said, Are ye also yet without the understanding? Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly, and is cast out into the drought?
Now, this is his disciples. These are people he kicking it with. They going from town to town together. But boy, he comes off harsh on them. And 9 times out of 10, this is being said in front of other people. Every now and again you hear it says they asked him privately. But hold on, bro. Are you also without understanding? That's enough to crush anybody. But are we going to let our feelings keep us back from salvation? Are we going to let some harsh speech keep us back from salvation? But you see, because some of us will let that bounce off, do what we got to do and keep moving. And people, oh man, they're weak. Them brothers weak. Hey, it says Moshe was meek. And look at how Israel kept coming at him. How many times you heard about Moshe going off? A lot of it Moshe sucked up and like, okay, whatever. But when it was time to jump up on the table, he did it. But he didn't react that way to every situation. But that's us. Every situation we want to react and get caught up in our feelings. A lot of us are grown people dealing with childhood issues. We need to be honest. A lot of us are adults dealing with childhood issues. I'm glad that at age 16, my father looked at me and said, you know what your problem is? Every time somebody say something that you don't like, you ready to get peed off. Hey, man, it was honest words. It cut, but it was honest words that made me look within myself. And that's where a lot of us are adults now. Still dealing with them childhood issues of when somebody says something we don't like, we ready to go off the handle. Are we going to let that cause us our salvation? Is it worth it to come this far and because of some hard speech or something that you didn't like? Something you didn't like, not something done wrong in Scripture. Now you're gone. Go ahead.
But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, blasphemies.
How much of us can understand and admit that? For out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts. Verse 18, but those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. So when somebody come at you about something that you've said, you really need to check yourself and see how deep down inside of you this probably came from. And then examine, why is this coming up? What is it that I have not dealt with? This got me acting and reacting this way. Go ahead.
These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands defileth not a man.
All right, let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 5. First Timothy chapter 5, and we're going to start at verse 1.
Rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father, and the younger men as brethren, the elder women as mothers, the youngers as sisters, with all purity.
Do we see each other this way? Do we see each other as brethren and sisters and mothers and elders? Go ahead.
Honor widows that are widows indeed. But if any widow have children or nephews, let them learn first to show piety at home and to requite their parents, for that is good and acceptable before Elohim. Now she that is a widow indeed and desolate trusteth in Elohim and continueth in supplication and prayers night and day. But she that liveth in pleasure is dead while she liveth. And these things give in charge, that they may be blameless. But if any provide not for his own, and specifically for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith, and is worse than an infidel. Let not a widow be taken into the number under 80 years old, having been the wife of one man, well reported of for good works, if she have brought in children, if she have lodged strangers, if she have washed the saints' feet, if she have reviled the afflicted, if she have diligently followed every good work. But the younger widows refuse, for when they have begun to wax wanton against the Mashiach, they will marry, having damnation, because they have cast off their first faith. And withal, they learn to be idle, wandering about from house to house, and not only idle, but tattlers also, and busybodies, speaking things which they ought not.
This is what happens when you don't have enough to do. Then you're calling from house to house. See, back then, you might consider whether, you know what, I don't think I'm going to walk down to this next tent. I'm going to walk down to this next house. See, we got it so easy now, you ain't got to consider the journey. You just pick up the phone and let your fingers do the walking. And now you're tattletaling and you're busybodying. and causing issues. But that's where we also got to be able to look at each other and say, hey, man, why don't you get in your scriptures? Hey, you got a problem with this brother? You got a problem with that sister? Why don't you go talk to him? If not, don't call me. A little bit of idle time. But see, this situation here is talking about rare wives. Because everything is so fast-paced generation that it's quick to do something and become idle. Because you got it done so quick. This is not the time when washing clothes was a chore. And doing dishes was a chore. You throw it in the machine and walk away and you got time on your hands. Yeah, girl. Let me talk to you while this thing is in the spin cycle. Instead of finding something else to go do around the house. You know what? That's on a timer. I don't have to watch that. Let me go throw these pots on over here that I'm going to have to watch and make sure nothing burns. Or let me go over here with these kids and go ahead and put some time in on some schooling. Now everything got a timer now. We can walk away and find idle time. Go ahead.
Verse 14. I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully.
This don't work. This don't work in this day and age. Go ahead.
For some are already turned aside after Satan. If any man or woman that believeth have widows, let them relieve them, and let not the church be charged, that it may relieve them that are widows indeed. Let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. For the scripture saith...
What it says? Labor in the word and doctrine. Right?
Yes,
labor in the word and doctrine. They ain't say out there laboring with you on the grounds. How many people stop to think how much labor in the doctrine goes in for elder to put Sabbath class together? Turn around and do Bible study. But yet, we don't take that into consideration when he's sitting back saying, all right, you take care of that over there, you take care of that over here. 2-hour class. Have any of y'all ever tried to put together a 2-hour class? And see how many days that might take you to get done? Laboring in the word and in the doctrine. And then you got to consider turning around and counseling people. Turn around and cleaning up mess that's been thrown out on the floor. And what you don't see is when we get the outside people throwing their agendas towards the UCI and he's out there dealing with that mess. Not to mention still working a 9-to-5 job. So who want to put themselves on the playing field with him and think they level with him? You may not survive a week trying to do what he does. See, I'm actually now getting a little bit of the taste of what it means to be free to move the way Yahweh wants you to move. By not being tied to any specific company's 9-to-5, clocking in and clocking out. But see, unless you've been on both sides, you wouldn't understand. But you're on the outside looking in. Go ahead.
Verse 18. For the scripture saith, Thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn, and the laborer is worthy of his reward. Against an elder receive not an accusation, but before 2 or 3 witnesses. Them that sin rebuke before all, that others also may fear. I charge thee before Elohim, and the Adonai Yahshua, and the elect angels, that thou observe these things without preferring one before another, doing nothing by partiality. Lay hands suddenly on no man, neither be partakers of other men's sin. Keep thyself pure. Drink no longer water, but use a little wine for thy stomach's sake, and thine often infirmities. Some men's sins are open beforehand, going before to judgment, and some men they follow after.
You don't want to be in a position where your sins following after you. You want to be in a position where you taking care of stuff when it needs to be taken care of. Go ahead.
Likewise, also the good works of some are manifest beforehand, and they that are otherwise cannot be hid.
All right. My brother, go ahead and read the definition for rebuke for me, please.
Rebuke, H3198, Yokak, I'm assuming that's how you say it. Primitive root, to be right, that is correct. Reciprocally, to argue, causatively, to decide, justify or convict, appoint, argue, chasten, convince, correct, correction, daysman, dispute, judge, maintain, plead, reason, together, rebuke, reprove, surely, in any wise.
So, them that sin correct before all. Them that sin argue, convince, dispute before all. Them that sin maintain, plead, reason the cause before all. Them that sin reprove before all. So where rebuke's supposed to happen? Before all. But we do this and people think you're so wrong. This is not my belief. This is what is stated in the book. I didn't come up with this. But if I do it, I'm wrong. So if I'm wrong, then the book wrong. If any brother or sister does this, why are they wrong? If we're wrong, then the book is wrong. It said rebuke before all. So now you mad because we are actually living the book? You're mad because we can deal with it as it is written? Then you don't want to deal with the truth. Go ahead, my brother, read the next definition there.
Rebuke, H2781. Kirpa, from H2778. Contumely, disgrace. The pedendum, rebuke, reproach, reproachfully, shame.
There's that interesting word right there, the pedenda. My brother, read the definition of pedenda.
Pedenda, H1320. Barsaw, from H1319. Flesh, from its freshness, by extension, body, person, also, by euphemism, the pedenda of a man, body, fat, lean, flesh, fleshed, kin, mankind, nakedness, self, skin.
So we heard pedenda in rebuke, right? It says disgrace the pedenda. in plain English, rebuke, disgrace, shame the pudenda, the flesh of man. Shame the flesh of man. And that's the problem. We don't want to deal with shame. That's why we want everything to be done in private. But shame should be what stops you from having that conversation. Shame should be what stops you from moving forward with this action. That's what makes us better servants, better brothers, sisters. If you can't come to me in my faults, then you're not a brother or a sister to me. If I can't come to you in your faults, then I'm not a brother to you. And I'm damn sure not a priest unto you. But I'm going to do my job. Be upset if you want to. And I know Elder going to do his job. And I've been on the tail end of him doing his job. As many of us in here. And we've got mothers in here and sisters in here the same way. That are going to do their job. They're going to do their job. So if you've got a problem with shaming the flesh of man, this is not the walk for you. This is not the place for you. And when I say the walk for you, I know some of y'all watch other congregations, deal with other congregations, other people. What you're getting is watered down. Because eventually, the true man is going to be up front. And we already see how Yahshua deals with things. If you don't get used to it now, hey, hate it for you. We see what 70 turned into, right? Because of some harsh speech. But then again, he says, I only need a remnant. He ended up with the remnant. Are you willing to push through to be a part of the remnant? I'm with Cephas, where we gonna go? You got the words of life. Go to the next definition there, my brother, please. We're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 17. Deuteronomy chapter 17, and we're going to read verses 8 through 13.
If there arise a matter too hard for thee in judgment, between blood and blood, between plea and plea, between stroke and stroke, being matters of controversy within thy gates, then shalt thou arise and get thee up into the place which Yahweh thy Elohim shall choose.
Now, if there arise a matter too hard for you in judgment between blood and blood, between plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, being matters of controversy within your gates, then shall you arise and get you up into the high place, or get into the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose. This could be within your very house. As your gates, right? So, you got something going on in your house. It says you go to the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose. So who's at that place? Now, if you want the problem to be solved, you should go there. But now if you want to tell the individuals in your house you can't go to the priest, that means you just told them they can't go to Yahweh's place. Now you want to stop me from going to Yahweh's place? How are we going to resolve the controversy then? That must mean you like this, huh? You don't want a resolution. You don't want to solve this. You don't want to move on from this. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. If somebody trying to stop you from talking to the priest, I just recently made this statement, then tell them to stop doing what they're doing. If you don't want me to go to the priest, stop doing what you're doing then. If not, I'm going to the priest. Go ahead.
And thou shalt come unto the priests, the Levites, and unto the judge, that shall be in those days, and inquire, and they shall show thee the sentence of judgment. And thou shalt do according to the sentence which they of that place which Yahweh shall choose shall show thee, and thou shalt observe to do according to all that they inform thee, according to the sentence of the law which they shall teach thee, and according to the judgment which they shall tell thee, thou shalt do. Thou shalt not decline from the sentence which they shall show thee to the right hand nor to the left. And the man that will do presumptuously, and will not hearken unto the priest that standeth to minister there before Yahweh thy Elohim, or unto the judge, even that man shall die, and thou shalt put away the evil from Israel. And all the people shall hear and fear, and do no more presumptuously.
Now, it says, according to the sentence of the law which they shall teach you, and according to the judgment which they shall tell you, you shall do, you shall not decline from the sentence which they shall show you to the right hand nor to the left. That means you need to follow it to the T. And the man that will do presumptuously and will not hearken unto the priest that stands to minister there before Yahweh Elohim, or unto the judge, even that man shall die, and you shall put away the evil from Israel. And all the people shall hear and fear, and do no more presumptuously. Right there is where I was talking about. It matters how you take care of stuff and when you take care of it. Because you can take care of it and it don't get heard. But then it says what? When that man dies, all the people shall hear and fear. So we can deal with a situation. And you go ahead and take care of your business. And everybody don't have to know. Unless that's how you put it out there. But then when you decided that this is not what I'm going to do, all the people must hear. When Miriam stood outside for 7 days, believe me, who didn't stand by and watch, ask questions? You can do what you got to do and take care of your business. And everybody don't know, have to know exactly who did it. They might hear that a brother or a sister did something and it was dealt with in this manner, but they don't necessarily have to know which brother or sister did it, depending on how you take care of your business. But if you decide to be presumptuous and not take care of the business, don't be upset. And everybody hears. I didn't write it. The priest over here didn't write it. He just read it. Can you read the definition for presumptuously, please?
Presumptuously. H2102, Zud, Zed, a primitive root, to seethe, figuratively, to be insolent, be proud, deal proudly, presume, come, presumably, sod.
To be proud. Remember that word shame earlier? To be proud. So we become proud and we don't want to do or take care of the matter that was put in front of us. So we let pride cause us to get puffed up and deal in a manner that then results in everybody having to know. That's all we're going to do for this evening. Shalom, family.
Shalom.